anywhere.
I understand.
Ever.
I understand that you don't want that to happen.
No, I don't consent.
Okay. That's okay for you to not consent.
Then don't put my stuff anywhere.
I understand you don't want me to do that.
Don't do it.
I understand you don't want me to do it.
Is this why you record for stupid shit?
Why do I have to be accountable for the white race?
For yourself.
Right, so if I'm racist, I'll take responsibility for that.
You probably are not racist, but...
Well, thank you. So then why do I have to comment on somebody else's racism?
But what you should do is take accountability for the racism around you.
But you said take responsibility. How can I take responsibility for somebody else's actions? Do you know that a black person is 18.5 times more likely to shoot and kill a police officer than a police officer is to go and shoot an unarmed black man?
Is that the question that I asked you?
No, you asked a hypothetical about if I'm going to take accountability for a racist police officer. But you understand, if I inverted it on you, would you take accountability for all the blacks killing police in America?
That was funny.
No, would you? No. Why don't you take accountability for all the blacks killing police in New York?
I wouldn't take accountability for it.
Maybe you just think that women should be equally represented in the decision-making fora of our nation. Maybe that's really just about having proper equality in a body that's meant to be representative.
Well, I do believe that women should have... I don't understand your question, I guess.
I guess you don't. That's pretty obvious, unfortunately.
Well, how about if you phrase it more clearly, instead of just insulting me? Look, 99.9% of bricklayers are men. Should we have quotas for women?
Is bricklaying representative democracy?
That has nothing to do with the question. The question is if there's evidence of structural inequality and oppression because women aren't precisely represented at 50% in all professions at all levels, then why don't we have a conversation about having women represented in all professions at all levels? Why do we talk about the C-suite, for example? Why do we talk about politics and positions of power? Why don't we talk about it across the board?
Okay. Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
Well, it is something that shouldn't be said. It is not right. But Andrew, I don't think that...
So Rosie Duffield should not have said that. Can you explain to people watching why she should not have said that?
Well, Andrew, I don't think that we can just go through various things that people have said. Rosie Duffield, I spoke to Rosie earlier this week and told her that conference was a safe place for her to come, and it is a safe place for her to come. And I spoke to others to make exactly the same principle. We do everybody a disservice when we reduce what is a really important issue to these exchanges on particular things that are said. The trans community are, as I say, the most marginalised and abused of many, many communities, and we need to make progress on the gender recognition.
What gender do you think you are?
I'm a male.
Maybe I think you're a woman.
No, legally I'm a male. It says on my driver's license that I'm a male.
What if I said I don't believe you?
It doesn't matter.
What gender do you think I am?
I would assume you're female.
See, you're making assumptions.
Yes.
I identify as non-binary.
Respectfully, it doesn't matter.
It does matter.
What pronouns should I use?
You should use they, them pronouns.
What if I don't?
If you don't, I would consider that disrespectful, and that's actually an act of violence to intentionally misgender someone.
Here we come to the issue. You just said that's an act of violence. That means
Yes.
it's an actionable offense. That means it's a crime. We have no idea how many pronouns there are. We can never know how many pronouns there are. And to not use a proper pronoun is an act of violence against them. Did you ask my pronouns before you sat down?
No, I didn't ask your pronouns.
You just talked about me being privileged. You understand? No one goes around asking pronouns before they speak with people.
Group of people that feel their fundamental rights are being denied. Why is there even a resistance to expanding the rights of others when it's not taking away any from us?
Assuming that there are two couples, they're interested in having a polyamorous relationship inter se. They're all adults and hopefully not brothers and sisters. Assume for a moment that this particular practice acquires a certain critical mass. What is your position going to be then?
If the will of society is to have polyamorous relationships, how do you become the custodian to stop that?
If the will of the society is also going to be to change the nature of the constitution, hit reset on the constitution, give it a different rashtra altogether, will you give effect to that identity as well?
You know, you've changed. I was asking.
No, the logic is the same.
No,
logic is the same.
Logic is not
if
the
the
same.
society accepts something, you're saying it must be acceptable to the judiciary. If I were to end up convincing 90% of this community, or let's say of this country, to my position on certain issues, will you then accept it? Then I then say, I don't need to go to the court. I'll hit the reset. I'll use Article 368 and come out with a different constitution altogether. Republic 2.0. Are you okay with it?
Okay. You know, I'm going to get drawn into. I'm going to play referee and
Not my answer.
Well, in what sense is our society male-dominated?
The fact that the vast majority of wealth is owned by men, the vast majority of capital is owned by men. Women do more unpaid labour.
Very tiny proportion of men, and a huge proportion of people who are seriously disaffected are men. Most people in prison are men. Most people who are on the street are men. Most victims of violent crime are men. Most people who commit suicide are men. Most people who die in wars are men. People who do worse in school are men. It's like, where's the dominance here precisely? What you're doing is you're taking a tiny substrata of hyper-successful men and using that to represent the entire structure of Western society. There's nothing about that that's vaguely appropriate.
Was there ever a point in history where white privilege did exist?
Yeah, I suppose when we lived in a country where if you were black, you were not allowed to go into certain places.
When did it end?
When it stopped being systemic, when there stopped being laws in place that stopped me as a black person doing what you're able to do as a white man. If you ask me whether or not I believe in economic privilege, I would tell you yes. If you ask me whether or not I think that somebody born into a family of billionaires be afforded more privileges in life than somebody that is born in the projects of Chicago, I would say yes, because economic privilege in this country does exist. But there is no law in place that is stopping a person because of the color of their skin from gaining that economic privilege, which is why I do not believe that white privilege, which is based upon the color of your skin, exists. If you're asking me, do I think the black community has been crippled economically, the answer would be yes. It has been crippled economically by Democrat policies. You just heard me say that. Who cares? Who doesn't?
Democrats are Americans. Democrats are in America, so therefore you just admitted that there has been disadvantage by two black people, by Democrats who are Americans. You just admitted it.
It is not based off. You asked me if white privilege exists. The answer is white privilege. Because you're born white, that means you're going to not have this or that. It does not exist. No. This is what I love about white liberals, right? Like, they know it's so important for them to sell us our oppression that they'll come up and tell us we're under grace. Just say it. Just say it.
Can you speak for
Well,
all
why
black
don't you
people?
stop speaking for black people? That would be great, okay?
I'm not.
Why don't you let
privilege.
him, who's shaking his head and rolling your eyes, speak about his experience as a black man?
We can have a conversation later.
No, because you're sitting here yelling at me, telling me, and I'm telling you the answer. Economic privilege exists. You're saying why does it disproportionately affect blacks? Because we're disproportionately voting for Democrats, and it's stupid.
Would you consider yourself progressive?
I want to see progress. So in that sense, but by the dictionary definition, I guess so. The problem is that you might have some ideas about what is implied by the political term progressive that maybe I agree with, maybe I don't, but I definitely want to see, humanity progress.
And one of the reasons I'm concerned about you being a progressive is that...
Me specifically, or all progressives?
All men.
Men, only men.
Only men.
Progressive women don't concern you.
It's abnormal for women to be progressive.
Interesting.
Or liberal, but it's abnormal for a man to be a liberal or progressive. It's a sign of being a beta male.
I didn't know that.
Because real men are conservative, Republican, and strong in nature. So I'm concerned if you're a liberal or progressive.
If I became conservative, would I no longer be beta?
You become alpha.
Wow, something to think about.